Captain's Log Supplemental.
So we here at Garage Heroes in Training thought it might be fun to have a listener league for fantasy F1. So we did some sampling last year. We tried, I think, 5 or 6 different fantasy F1 sites, and we found one that we like. It's called Grid Rivals. And if you're interested in a fantasy F1 league, we have a league set up in there called Friends of GHiT. The link to join is in the episode notes. So if you feel like having fun with some other listeners and team members of Garage Heroes in Training, please come on in. We've got about 2 more weeks before the F1 season starts, and the league will be going. It should take, if you haven't ever done this before, maybe 5 or 10 minutes per race weekend. So it's not a big time commitment, but hopefully you can have some fun and we can see how everybody does. And good luck to everybody who joins. Welcome to the Garage Heroes in Training podcast. I'm going to be one of the hosts for this episode. My name is Bill. Who else is hosting?
I'm Vicky.
Miss Vicky, we have a guest.
Yes, we do.
He is someone we have been chasing both in a literal and figurative sense for the podcast and on track. I have been introduced to him indirectly through like 5 to maybe 10 people at NASA Great Lakes saying you need to have him on. And I kept wanting, we always like to invite people on as we bump into them in the paddock. But just as on track, he's way too fast and gets away from me way too quickly, and I can never find him. I see him go on the track and then off the track, and then I don't know, he's got a teleporter or something because there's no way I can go around the track as fast as he does. He is either current record holder or past record holder of many different classes at MidOhio. He is part of and working with and part of being associated with Drive Faster Now, which is a driver coaching and assisting in people getting better on track, which sounds an awful lot like what we try to do on our podcast. He's done vehicle dynamics and testing for several OEMs, and we may even hit towing because we're in the midst of our towing part 1 and part 2 at the point where we're recording this. And we'd like to welcome to the podcast Anthony Magagnoli, please. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, guys.
So one of the fun stories we have on our team is I had gone to MidOhio a few times before Miss Vicky and her sister Jen came to MidOhio for the first time, and they were warned about MidOhio in the rain. So naturally, the first day that they arrive, the weather of MidOhio decided, hey, for the next 2 hours, I'm going to rain, and freaked them out just a little bit. But they kept saying, yeah, it was kind of fun. So they kept saying, Anthony's here. You need to go talk to him. And we couldn't find you, but that's okay. We found you now, sir.
It was raining in MidOhio. I don't know. Maybe I decided to leave. No. I've always enjoyed racing at MidOhio in the rain, and it's all gonna be different here very soon with the repave. But the funny thing about MidOhio in the rain was that the line was the literal opposite of the dry line. Basically, the biggest strategy was minimize the amount of time that you need to be on the drive line, and when you have to cross over the dry line, be as straight as possible.
Yeah,
that was the main strategy. But yeah, as we were talking before we started here, the repave happened at the end of last season, and they had done a test patch in turn 1 at the beginning of last year. So we got an opportunity to drive that, or I personally did early in the year, and then also later in the year, I think. And in the wet specifically, it drained, unlike the sealed surface did previously. So proportionally, the grip was like, you felt like you hit dry pavement all of a sudden compared to coming off the front straight, or when you exited it between turns 1 and 2. So that's very promising for, I guess, fun factor for racing in the rain, and safety factor where you'll have a lot more margin for error. Where the fastest parts of the track were right at the edge previously, where the car spent normally the least amount of time. And so that gave you very little buffer. If you're gonna push the limit and be right at the edge of the track, you just have no buffer there following. So hopefully it'll give a lot more buffer and create more dynamic racing in the rain, where cars can actually go side by side. Where currently it's more single file for the most part. And however, in the dry, turn 1, at least initially, made the cars very pushy. It was surprising how much the actual balance of the car changed, where it wasn't just like loose or grippy overall, but like really drove the cars into understeer. At least it was a GT350, the second version of the one you see behind me, or third version actually. And so it was an aero car, 305, I think, or 315 Hoosiers. But it was quite understeer. But my understanding is that it really gripped up through the course of the year, balanced out, and people were pretty happy with it. So I think that's very promising for the rest of the track.
So we're going way out of order now, but that's fine. We got into Mid Ohio. So was Mid Ohio, let's say the former Mid Ohio, because the new one we don't really know about. Was it the surface itself, or was it the sealer, or was it the polishing of the aggregate and the pavement, or was it just, because it was unlike any track that we'd been to when it was wet, or it was, or at
So,
least it seemed to be.
so my answer is yes.
It was.
You generate a tire generates grip in two ways. One is by shear force, like a physical tearing, where you have like the peaks of the aggregate
Mhm.
kind of digging into the rubber, and you have a shearing force. So there's a mechanical aspect. And the second is a chemical bond that occurs through between the tire and the asphalt. And so both of those can be affected. So the polishing is one where that aggregate is not so coarse, so you don't have as much shear force capability. And then the chemical, I think when you have that surface layer of water that can't drain away, not only do you have a hydroplaning effect, but you can't get that bond to the asphalt. So I think there's actually really two factors there. One is that it didn't allow the water to drain through, and so you kind of kept this boundary layer that didn't allow the tire really to make good contact and with the asphalt. That's my best impression of it. And clearly, the polishing was a big effect there, because the further you get off track, or sorry, the further you get off of the dry line, the more grip that you would find. So as you
Mhm.
get right up to the edge of the track where no cars ever drive, the grip would go up tremendously. So yeah, that aggregate had a big part to play in it.
Yeah, it was as close to, ice skating in a car that I'd ever seen. So I had a feeling it was something to do with the water just sitting there and forming like a almost a boundary layer on the tire.
Yeah,
It kind of sucked.
yeah.
Hmm.
If you've driven a pit race in the wet, that asphalt has really good draining capability,
Hmm.
and I mean, damp or wet times are like a mere few seconds off of dry times.
Yeah.
It's really remarkable. It makes it a lot of fun.
Yeah, the only issue with pit races, there's like two or three places where it'll have like the little streamlets going across. So
Hmm.
sometimes they can be fun, but you know,
Yeah,
they don't move, they
As long
stay.
as you're prepared for it,
Yeah,
you know that it's coming, especially like right around 12. I think it's they usually get like a little channel, and there's
little.
like a little tiny, it's like a little tiny angle, just enough to that you could, if you're not prepared for it. Because I hit it. I'm
you live to
aware of
tell
that
about
one.
it.
I've lived to tell about it.
Yeah. So looking forward to the new pavement there. I'll be on track with WRL in an M235 IR at the end of March. So the pavement should
Awesome.
be relatively fresh at that time. So everybody's gonna be dealing with the same thing. I mean, line's not gonna be that different, and really it'll be just the philosophies that I would be teaching anybody on how to drive fast on any new track will need to be employed to find the most out of your particular car with this new situation. I mean, just like the sun comes out, the rain comes out, temperature changes, etc. The track's always a little bit different. You always have to go and adjust a little bit
Hmm.
to what you got.
Yeah. So do they like this will be the first track that's been fully repaved since we started. Would they just wipe the slates clean as far as records go and start over, or would they keep them
It might
going?
depend on the organization. I believe that like Great Lakes, when there's been a significant change, they've kind of classified the difference, and like kind of shown who owned the record for each. So I'm not sure if they're going to continue to do that or not, and whether it'll get faster or not. I mean, in the
Mm,
dry, well, that remains to be seen.
sure. Absolutely.
I can tell you that nationals usually generates the track records because for two reasons. One, you typically have the fastest drivers all putting their best foot forward at that event. And two, you've got rubber being built up over the course of several days from a lot of cars, and it, the track actually improves as well. So it's worth looking at when a track record was set. If it was set during nationals, it's there's maybe a little bit of advantage there in the track that if you're trying to chase that lap time in a whatever other regional weekend, the track may not be capable of delivering the same lap time. So, proceed with caution.
Right.
Unless they just do like a hard stop and just basically just say, pre, whatever, these are all the stats, and then post,
So you could have your record forever and nobody could ever break.
Maybe, but records are meant to be broken. So I'll applaud the person that takes it down.
Absolutely. Part of competing.
So how did you get involved with racing just in general? I mean, you seem like a pretty young guy. Seems like, you got involved for as far as you've gotten. Is this always something that you've enjoyed?
I wish that I had gotten into it when I was young. I mean, I can remember going to look at some go-kart with my parents and not going home with it. And that was, who knows how the path would have changed had we gotten it. But I really didn't have any personal influence when I was growing up or guide to get me into it. So it was really all self-started, and I found out about autocross actually from my high school friend's stepfather, who was heavily involved with the MG car club in Rochester, New York, which is where I grew up. And he introduced me to autocross, and had a Saturn SC2 3-door coupe was my first car, and did it with that until they yanked my warranty, and I won't even get into it. And he actually offered me his MGA autocross car, which had an MGB motor, and it was all set up. And his name was George Haynes, brilliant behind the wheel of that car, and actually let me run it for an event. And it was such a stark contrast from anything I'd experienced at that point, which wasn't much, I'll admit, but it always stuck with me that he would offer something like that to his actually stepson's friend in high school. I guess he saw something in me that I was like really interested and passionate about it. And I actually looked him up last year. He was considerably older than me at the time when I was in high school, when he had white hair. And I tracked him down last year. He's 84 years old. I had lunch with him at Christmas time when I was home, and got to update him on what's gone on for the last 20 something years, and how far I'd made it since then. So so it was autocross as much as I could, which was a great way to build car control, and it fit the budget and time that I had at that time. And then towards the end of college, I started getting into HPDE and RX-8. I went first an E36 325S, and then an RX-8 for the majority of it. I did 2 years with that, and I moved at that time from Rochester to, when I graduated, to Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area to work for Toyota. And so I started frequenting more of the Midwest tracks, and that for a couple of years, and then started racing in Spec E30, in BMW Club with an E30. Did that for 2 years, and then converted the car to NASA Spec E30, which actually slowed down the car, but I was going after the competition and developing myself as a racer, regardless of a second or so difference in lap time. And that's where I started really developing my skills as a racer. And in 2012, won the national championship, which was held at MidO. And from there, I'd already started doing some private coaching, and that continued, where I was doing a lot of co-driving, and that was creating a really strong network, and eventually opened a door to pro racing. And in 2017, I ran in Pearly World Challenge in the TC class in an M235IR. It was a really competitive season. We had a lot of pros running up front that year, and was proud to have taken home Rookie of the Year honors, and really was hoping for a second year where the team and I could all take our learnings and build on it, because it was a brand new team. Also, it didn't have any pro racing experience yet, but they clearly built on their capabilities. Johan Schwartz replaced me in that car as he was able to find the funding that unfortunately didn't follow me from the first season to the next. And I think they won the championship, I want to say twice, I believe. And they still do a lot of driving together. So, but since then, let's see, that was 2017. So I moved to work for FCA and vehicle dynamics in 2015. So, my racing was complementing my OEM work and vice versa. And then I had left FCA and was just doing my Drive Faster Now business, the driver coaching, race car or vehicle setup and development, among some other things, and met Corey Deeds, who had a Mustang GT350 or Shelby GT350 track car, and got working with him, and then that turned into a development program for that car, which we were using the NASA ST2 class for development, and ran in the championships for that in 2019. Finished second. It's one that I would have liked an opportunity to improve upon, but regardless, that was a springboard to go to Trans Am in SGT with that car and continue development there. And unfortunately, it was short-lived, because my first race in 2021 was at Road America on NASCAR weekend, and going into turn one, so at the end of the front straight, 160 miles an hour in that car, braking, I had a Corvette behind me lose his brakes behind me and tag me in the brake zone for one. Turned me, hit the wall, ricocheted off, and then the tires dug into the gravel and the car tumbled approximately 9 times, just spraying parts. So unfortunately,
it's like a yard sale.
Yeah, NASCAR fans are funny. Parts got placed like out in front of the car as they got delivered back from by the tow truck or recovery team, and man, the fans just like picked it to nothing. They took home shreds of anything, didn't matter, they would take it. So that was it was unfortunate. And we did run another. We built a customer car, which we had bought back and ran a little bit, but since then gotten tied up with another team for some endurance racing, which we're going to do WRL in their M235 IR this year. We did run AER last year and won a race overall the weekend that we ran that. So looking forward to doing a few more with them and see what else comes. The last 2 years I've raced in Peru, actually, in an E30 M3, and the 6 hours of Peru, which is like the biggest race that country sees. That's been a really exciting opportunity to go race overseas. And yeah, so that's kind of like the overall timeline of how things have progressed.
So, I mean, as you move forward, where do you see yourself going with it? Where do you see yourself retiring into as your path goes to? I mean, you have a long path. You got a long road. There's a lot of channels that you can go down. What do you see yourself doing?
Well, I'm going to approach it the same way that I have approached it thus far, which is not to. Some people may not agree with this mentality, but not to necessarily, focus myself on any given thing, but keeping myself open to opportunities as they may present themselves. I did have a life goal of racing professionally, like literally one time take a green flag in a pro race. That was my life goal. And that was checked at the beginning of 2017 when I took the green flag at VIR. So honestly, everything that's come since then has felt like icing on the cake. And I appreciate every opportunity that's come. And I have been asked, like, well, okay, you did it, so can you be done now? And that kind of would feel like a shame to have like built up all this experience and knowledge and capability and then like stop utilizing it. And you look at like a Nico Rosberg or something, wins a world championship in F1 and then like stops. And I understand the pressures are like totally different. And the reality is that, having a family now, like the time to commit to a passion is much more limited. So, and if you're gonna go all in, like you really need to go all in if you really want to get the most out of yourself and out of a team and everything. So, it does limit, the opportunities that I feel like I can pursue, and limits me from simply pursuing and having the time to pursue. But I'm going to treat it the same way, see where I can be best utilized and best help other people. And I think that will ultimately bring myself personal reward as well, to help other clients and teams recognize or realize their goals.
Mm-hmm. They're
I
good
think that's where my
goals.
focus is now.
For sure. So, sir, one of Vicky's favorites before we move on, is she always likes to know if you have a racing philosophy, perhaps a personal mantra. Could be advice to a new driver, could be advice to yourself, could be sitting in grid waiting for your race, and don't drive into people. It could be the simple one, but
Mm-hmm. Wearing your lucky socks and
no, I don't have like that level, that kind of superstition, but I say that it actually kind of follows the mantra that I just explained, that is my philosophy for racing. So I've given the advice that you can only do what you can do. You can only do what the car can do. You need to practice the way you race. You can't suddenly ask for more or expect more out of yourself or the car than you do on a regular basis in practice. So you have to give yourself the best preparation that you possibly can, whether it's yourself personally in your driving capability, the car prep, having the setup right the best you can, and then you put yourself out there, and then you're playing a chess match. It's
Mhm.
not so much a game of wits and aggression as it is executing to the best of your capability and taking advantage of the opportunities as they present themselves. The easiest way to win a race is to be fastest, right? Just be out in front and run away from everybody. That's the easiest way to do it. But
Indeed.
shy of that, you don't throw everything away chasing something that's not attainable. Be there, be doing the best lap times you can, and take advantage of opportunities as they present themselves, whether it's through traffic, other cars going off or braking or whatever it might be. Employ your best strategy, and the best possible results are going to come from it.
Mm.
You're not going to do better by just trying harder or asking the car to do something you've never asked it to do before,
So 110% is not better than 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
10% is what puts you off the track or into another car.
Yeah, indeed. I get that. So most of our listeners are either just starting out or have aspirations to just get better. Some of them have aspirations to get, you know, superstar status. And since you've raced both in a professional atmosphere and in an amateur racing, I thought perhaps we could go over some of the pluses and minuses, because sometimes, at least from the professional racing racers that have experience with it, sometimes they have more fun and enjoy racing more in the amateur races or amateur weekends than they do at the pro racing. And viewed from, the couch, everybody's like, oh, I want to go be a pro racer. And maybe they get there, hopefully, skill wise, and then they find out that wasn't what they wanted. So,
You'll find most pro racers will throw up air quotes when they speak about pro racing. And the reason is because there's a lot of people that are there on financial ability or capability
mhm.
as much as those that are there on merit. So the racing in a competitive class at the club level can be more rewarding, more fun, and more able to build skill off of, especially if you're surrounded with, if you're racing with people that you can trust and race hard with. It's not that different. Yeah, the pro racing sometimes can be less fun because the pressure is amped up so much higher.
Right.
But I've have, I guess, both experiences in pro racing where, I've where I find a lot of reward in pro racing is, like the notoriety is great. It's a big reason that a lot of people pursue it, and I'm not immune to that. Like I do enjoy that portion, but the racing itself, like my fondest memories of, I'll take the World Challenge season as an example. My fondest memories were running wheel to wheel with Nick Whitmer, because he and I were had respect for each other. We raced each other really hard, but within bounds of, not, not excessively touching, and there was just that mutual respect. We
Mhm.
gave it to each other as hard as we could on track, and if something happened, it was like, good for you. If I got one, good for me. Like it went either way, and we, whatever it was, we'd shake hands about it and laugh about it, after the fact. And if you're in it for the enjoyment of racing, I think that's a big portion that I think it's an important part to be in it for, and appreciate those experiences at the club level, because it may be harder to find at the pro level. The genuine, pure enjoyment of racing, and with an air of good sportsmanship.
Mhm.
You can have quite the opposite, where people are just, pushing that. Okay, hopefully you get less. Well, no, you certainly get some people doing that 110%. I mean, I got taken out, I think, by both first two races, and I think again later in the season, by somebody just employing that extra 10% that wasn't there. And that's really, really frustrating, especially when you have that pressure that are amping people up and pushing them to, try to extract that 10%, that extra 10% that's not there. So if your main thing is just to prove you are the absolute best, I mean, guys, I'm not into that. I do want to show myself as being the best. I want to win, and I want to
Sure.
win a championship and show that, right? And part of what I liked about, the sprint format of of the TC class, and most of the, the sprint racing that like NASA does, is that it's really just, the one driver and the car. In an endurance format, your IMSA, TC America, co-driver pairings, etc., or any other endurance racing, it's a little bit harder to show the individual driver's capability, or have an individual driver shine, within their team. It's easy to recognize, and sometimes it happens. It's just not quite as clear cut as, this is the driver that won the race, this is the driver that set pole, this is the driver that won the championship. So it depends on what you're going for, but if you want to prove yourself as the best, you can certainly find that. I think winning a national championship at the club level in a competitive class is like just as big a notch on your belt as any like pro-am level of racing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, what would you tell yourself, that person that is 5 or 10 years ago, getting into racing or doing racing?
Not that you'd listen, because most of us wouldn't listen when we were 5 or 10 years ago.
I mean, if it's me, I don't know that I'd tell myself anything different, because I had made the decision to set myself down the path and take the most I could out of it.
And it is a journey.
Yeah, and it's changed. And I guess the biggest thing I would say is, because this kind of came back later, was the reminder to have fun.
Mm-hmm.
So Corey and I were working together on the GT350, and it was the first time we were out at Mid Ohio, the first race weekend. And I've gotten into such a role of being a development engineer, a development driver, both within my OEM work and through Drive Faster Now, that when I get on track, I'm like, I have a job to do, and I'm assessing, I'm testing, and I'm getting the car in a condition so when I bring it into the pits, we can get accurate data, that sort of thing, giving feedback all along the way. And so it was our first time out, and I came back into the paddock, and I'm just downloading, blah, 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 blah. And he's taking it all in, and he's like, "Did you have any fun?" I was like caught off guard by the question. I was like, "Well, yeah, the car's freaking sweet." Like, I kind of just forgot to register that. And but I always wanted it to be sweeter. I always wanted it to be better. The balance would be right. Get the shocks, really dialed in, etc. And so that's something really that I took away from our time. Not that our time was necessarily done, but like that time of working together with Corey was because he was new into racing. He'd been doing some track stuff, but so it's a good reminder from somebody starting out who's into it for the fun, and other reasons. But to really don't forget and enjoy where you're at. I was trying to tell myself that, like, through all the steps, when I went to World Challenge, especially, to really try and soak in the experience. But I would encourage others, have your goals, keep pushing, but stop and smell the roses. Stop and really appreciate where you're at, because A, you may not be able to do it for some reason tomorrow, or B, you may get somewhere else and be like, man, Spiky 30 was a shit ton of fun,
Mhm.
and that was a good time. And maybe I wish I'd done something different, or you don't want to really have regrets. So just soak it in.
Yeah, even bad race weekend's not a bad thing.
Have a good
Uh,
time. It's fun.
yeah, yeah. Try not to roll 9 times. That it doesn't make for the best weekend, but it does make for a memorable one.
I mean, let's take a look at it though. If you rolled the car 9 times, you were going pretty fast.
Yeah, that's one way to look at it. It's an unfortunate. It was an unfortunate one, and that possibility always exists.
For sure.
But it reinforces the importance of safety equipment. And if I just glossed over that, I'd feel like I missed an opportunity to kind of give a statement on the importance of the safety equipment. Because starting out, it wasn't always necessarily my number one factor. When you're spending money on your race car, the safety equipment doesn't necessarily always come first in a lot of people's minds. And we try to teach that it should, but really want to reinforce that. And in the Mustang, it had Halo seats in it, but they were like the hybrid, like the bolt-on Halo.
Okay.
And it didn't fit me well. And there were some other like little things. And I asked Corey for a safety upgrade, kind of comprehensive safety upgrade with a new seat, some additional padding, nets, etc. We did more than just that, but that upgrade, not only I'm confident that it saved me from significant injury in that rollover. I mean, I was down for a couple of months, but nothing serious. It saved me from serious injury in that case. But those seats also went into a 1M, a BMW 1M that I run in the One Lap of America with Neil Simon, and we put those seats in his car when we were testing in Mid-Ohio. And then 2 weeks later, he went to Summit Point and ping-ponged the car off the guardrails and rode it off. He had stock seats in that car previously. So I'm forever thankful to Corey for investing in the safety upgrade to the Mustang, because not only thanks for myself, but also for Neil. I mean, I think having even the hybrid race seat, saved him from serious injury in his accident as well.
Right.
And even though, I was saved from serious injury, we still took learnings from where the car was at and how it performed in the rollover that I try to convey to others. The way the window net is attached, bolting the seat back to the roll cage, that would have, in fact, that seat could have been reused indefinite number of times. It was a race tech, and if the back had been bolted, it wouldn't have been stressed down below. I mean, the mounts were disfigured, stretched, where the mounts were trashed, but that seat would have been able to be reused if it was bolted to the seat back, and I would have been better off as well.
Seats are not cheap.
How do you bolt a seat to the cage?
So that seat actually has attachment points in back of it.
Okay.
Is a
Hmm.
getting
We
the
had
model number.
we were in a car. One of our cars had that.
Yeah,
I'm
the
used to the
Kirklees and the
bar.
NASCAR
Yeah.
ones, like some of the higher level ones. Now you can also do just a back brace,
Yeah,
and
we're used to
that's
that. Yeah.
yeah. But if you have the ability to bolt it to the seat, that would be even level up.
Yeah, I
But
think with our team, the only way we could do that is if we had the pedals that move, because we go from 5 foot nothing to 6'4".
yeah,
So
harder to do in
yeah,
an enduro car. There's a funny image. One of my clients, Keith Niswander, he's a Great Lakes guy running a 318 Ti with an M54 engine. And do either of you know Keith?
I think I do. I think I've
He's
been
he's
there a few
he's
times.
like bodybuilder, so
Yep,
he's like
I do.
six, I don't know, 3 or 4, something like that, and I'm
Hmm.
5'9", if I slept well and I'm all stretched out. So for me to drive his car with a fixed seat, I had like 6 pads. And it wasn't racing his car, just to set reference laps. I had like 6 pads to fit myself in there to be able to simply function
Yeah,
behind the wheel.
indeed. Bodies are different for sure.
Yeah, but getting the right fit in your car is really an important factor in being able to get the most out of it as well. It helps with connection and comfort, so you're not even subconsciously like fighting the G forces or to keep yourself in place or planted or comfortable. So it's not to be overlooked. If anybody listening has any questions about how to set up their car safety wise and comfort wise, they can feel free to reach out and I'll share with them what I've learned over the years.
Yeah, I think our first all ladies team event, we decided to, work and focus on making sure the seat fit and positioning was right for the ladies. And since we dropped off all the 6 foot plus guys, we made it so that I think Vicky and Jennifer were the tallest at 5'7". And it was amazing how much we moved the seat to make them feel better. And then how much better they felt. And it wasn't just fit; it was visual because
Height.
Yeah.
they were able to see better. And so we focused on that. I think we spent like 3 or 4 hours just finagling the seat and putting it in the right spot, and took a
Yeah.
while. But
I've had that dilemma of I want to be as low as possible to lower the center of gravity and
mhm.
maximize performance, but at some point I need to see over the dash.
Yeah, yeah, or the hood or whatever. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was that was a long day. Luckily, Vicky's got small hands, so I don't have to do anything with the nuts and bolts. So she's the one carving up her fingers. So
Swapping out seats are miserable.
it is. It's like if you could just take the center just blanked on the word. Take that little center
The
tunnel out.
substrap.
No, the
Substrap.
tunnel. Oh, the substrap. Forget that thing.
Oh yeah.
That thing sucks. No matter what
Yeah,
you do.
there are several things I don't like to do on the car that they're little things that bother me, and seats are one of them.
That's because you get to do all of them. Because I get to say, "Oh, my hands are too big." Sorry.
Are you talking about the trans tunnel, Bill?
Yeah, the trans tunnel. That thing. There's always 1 or 2 bolts there that you just can't get to, and you know, if you can get a wrench on it, it's like a quarter of an eighth of a turn, and it's 500 times you get to do it for a bolt that's way too long. But that's just me.
Captain's log supplemental.
So, Bill, guess what?
What
We did the Sentinel. We
we
did the
did?
Sentinel.
We did.
We
How did
we
you
were
like it?
You know what? We were talking about the Sentinel.
We have.
It was great. We understood watching how the Sentinel works,
Mhm.
but we finally got it into our car, and I got to tell you, that was really awesome. I was able to see every one of my mistakes.
We have hours of them.
We have hours of my mistakes,
That's right.
but we have hours of good stuff too, which is awesome. It actually showed us the speed. Did it show us where we were on track?
We were streaming it for
We were streaming it
we
live.
were boring billions of people across the world.
But it was pretty incredible. Plus, on it, you're able to put your insignia, your logos
Yep.
on your app also, and the clarity was amazing. It was really easy to put in,
It was
easier
easy.
than I thought it was.
I know you kept
So
making a big deal out of it. I'm like, it's really not that hard. It was
actually,
until we focused on it. It wasn't too bad. And then we got some help.
no,
It was pretty easy.
yeah, it was
Uh,
pretty good.
You know what? I like the stream because some of the tracks we go to don't have great cell phone coverage, but it's got
Mm-hmm.
a USB stick backup. So I
Mm-hmm.
just uploaded the high quality video without the cellular interruption. So
Mm-hmm.
if you watched us earlier and said, "Wow, they got from there to there really quickly," you can watch the real video and see that no, we didn't. It's just a cell phone went out.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. So the learning curve for me, obviously, I'm slightly techno Amish.
slightly,
What slightly when it comes to the wiring and stuff like that, but we get it in and I love it. We were able to sit there right at the track and watch what we were doing in the car, and that
yeah,
was amazing.
which was good because if you have a problem with your radio, you can
Hmm.
tell, if something is going on that you need to know about. Like
Hmm.
a couple times we've had cars come in and we didn't know they were broken. And I know it's hard to imagine one of our cars being broken, but whatever. But you can watch the video, and even with the cell phone coverage we had at that particular event, it was like a 30-second delay, so it wasn't bad.
Hmm. Hmm.
And you can compare multiple drivers because you have each of the stints are broken up. So we got to work on not only our driving, but if we wanted to, we could work on our pit stops and see exactly what we do. And there's some things that we need to talk about as a team. And it was pretty good. Like I said, it takes me, once we got the wiring hooked up for the power, I probably could go from an empty shell to a full up setup running Sentinel. I could probably do that in like 20 minutes.
Hmm.
So you could literally install it in a car before a race. It's kind of fun.
Hmm. Yeah.
And we got
When,
to see the driver and the front windshield. And if
yep.
we want to, we can have three. We can see backwards. Or one of the guys we were going to work with at the upcoming event, he said, could you put a camera on the driver's eyes so we could see what they're looking at? I
Hmm.
said, why, yes, I can. Haven't done it yet, but I'll figure it out. I've got time.
Well, I love it.
All right, very well. That sounds like I can buy another one then. Woo! So, sir, we originated our team name. We thought Garage Heroes would be cool, and then I thought that was very presumptuous. So we added the in training part because nobody's ever there, and years have gone by, and I don't want this news flash to any of our listeners or to you. We're not there yet, but you have Drive Faster Now, which is along the lines a much higher parallel line to ours, but it's still aimed at getting people better and helping people do that. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the beautiful thing about our sport, and the thing that's probably kept me engaged for so long, is that you never get quote unquote there. There's
Yep.
always more to learn, more to achieve, more to experience. So yeah, that's kind of, I guess, how Drive Faster Now, came to be. It started organically where I was instructing and then was being asked specifically to instruct at an event that I wasn't, going to planning to be at. And said, well, what's it worth to you? Okay, well, that's how it started back in like 2010. And then as I gained experience and developed my own methodology and gained experience in vehicle setup and whatnot, it's evolved. So my I focus typically with like advanced level HPDE up to racers, in or heading into pro racing. But like the meat is probably the club racer, the NASA club racer, the BMW car club, club racer. That's the meat. So I've had some newer people ask like or suggest I'd like to get you out next year, and it's like I can and I'd be happy to help, but like you'd probably have better value out of your free instructor if you attend an HPD program that provides instruction. NASA Great Lakes has a fantastic program, and like BMW Club HPDs, they offer instructors for every level. So the important thing is to seek out instruction, in my opinion. So yeah, and then my philosophy is that I will. I mean, I guess I got a couple, but one pillar is that I'm going to help you develop your program and drive faster now, quote unquote, by whichever ways are going to be most effective. So somebody might bring me out to focus on themselves and help them achieve some targets. But then I hop in to set a reference lap or give them some feedback on the car, and it's like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, how are you driving this thing? Like, people can be so either inexperienced with cars outside of their own, or they're not having enough diversified experience or enough subjective analysis capability built up yet, that they may simply not recognize where their car is at versus where it could be.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes it'll be like, okay, at the end of the day, we've done all our driver development stuff, and okay, take down some notes on the car for you to think about next time, or to work on between events, etc. Or sometimes it's like, listen, you're leaving 2 seconds on the table just because this thing is so off. And then sometimes it's a combination, especially with racers. It's often a combination of working on the car and also, or sorry, working on the driver maybe 75%, and then when I do set a reference lap, if I am doing so, I mean, I'm going to set the reference lap, but if it takes me 3 or 4 laps to do that, I'm going to be assessing at the same time. I mean, regardless, I'm going to be assessing no matter what. If I'm behind the wheel, it just happens. I can't not think about it. So, so whatever is going to make somebody faster. But then, specifically on the driver development side, I try to teach the methodology of how to adapt and go quicker, regardless of car, regardless of track, regardless of conditions. What are the things to look for? What is the order and the progress of things to address and change to ultimately maximize lap time? So that could be anything from somebody on a new track they've never seen before, and starting from a track map. What's the where are you going to prioritize exit speed versus prioritize entry speed, etc. To somebody who knows the track very well, and it's more minutia, where the car is not quite doing what they want it to do at a certain spot. Okay, how do you think about how to manipulate the car or alter the car's character or balance to do what you want to do? Because you can turn some knobs, but hold on, there's some things that you can do first to drive around this. Then if you can fix the car, fine, but have the procedure in mind of how to progress through it from a driving standpoint.
Right. Is there, well, comment first. When we first started, we didn't know a whole bunch of what we didn't even know. So we assumed beyond tire pressure, that one we knew. We assumed everything else was fixed. Like the car was, it's kind of like when you're in a race. It is what it is. That's what I got, so I'm going to drive around it. And we never realized what the car impact was doing on us and the interplay back and forth between the two. And it got us to where we're pretty good at driving around problems, because we drove around them for so long when we weren't very good. But we still, I think we neglect to look at what we could do car wise, setup wise, as opposed to, we blame the big bag of marinara in the seat as opposed to the car. And
I mean, the car can define your driving style versus your driving style defining the car, or what you want out of the car defining how to adjust the car to make it what you want, which will ultimately make the combination faster, right? You getting the car that does what you want it to do, and then you having the skill to manipulate it also to maximize lap time. That's what's going to give you the fastest package.
Yeah, I think, at this point with our team, if I were to walk up to everybody and interview them and say, what do you want from the car? I don't think I'd get a lot of great answers, because I'm not sure we've thought about it too much. Like,
here's a fun one. So I've been a facilitator of BMW club racing schools over the years. And when I lead a school, at some point, I asked the class by raise of hands, how many people like an oversteering car? And about half the hands go up. Great. Okay, how many people like a neutral car? The other half of the hands go up. How many people like an understeering car? I'm the only one that raises my hand. And everybody's like, what? Why would you want a car that understeers? And part of it's defining, what that means for an understeering car. But the reality is that if you have a car that inherently steady state, which means, let's say, middle of the corner, you're at maintenance throttle, you're not accelerating, you're not decelerating, just holding a constant lateral force. That's like the definition of steady state. If that car is oversteering or even neutral at steady state, you are going to be constantly chasing the back end, which means that you're not accelerating out of a corner because you're waiting on throttle to accelerate out. And on the way into the corner, because the rear is unweighted, you are now limited by that reduced rear end grip, keeping it from over rotating. And I know you guys can see me talking with my hands, and the people on the podcast won't. But sorry,
we'll put it in the notes.
Yeah, you can just assume the Italian is talking with his hands at all times. So the reality is that you need a baseline amount of understeer to accept the car being unbalanced on corner entry, because again, you can manipulate that car where if it's understeering, just a bit. I'm not saying dramatic understeer, but if it has some baseline understeer at steady state, all the other times, you are imbalancing the car, it can neutralize. It's still neutralized or on with some slight understeer. But if you are chasing the rear end, you are sacrificing lap time. And the other key thing there is that with a little bit of understeer, you can spend more time over the course of a lap at maximum grip. Again, because you're not constantly about to lose the car and crash it. Right? You can spend more time at the limit of grip over the course of a lap, which is at a level it's more important to generating a low lap time than driving the perfect line.
Let
me say again, being able to drive at the limit within reason over the course of the lap, the entire course of the lap, will generate more lower lap time than driving the perfect line, but just under the limit.
Yes, I'm with you. I think Robin yelled at me one time with not yelled at me. He said that it was more important to be committed to a line than to drive the perfect line.
Yep, that's another way to say it.
And I think I saved like 2 or 3 seconds at Audubon one day when I finally listened. Because sometimes the skull is thick, but
yeah. Well, so on the topic of coaching, it's a tough thing for people to realize, and it can depend on the type of driver and what they're looking for. But the speed coming, or the speed reduction coming out of coaching doesn't oftentimes happen at the time of coaching. And a lot of it is because a coach will be having you try new and different things, and it's a building block that they're having you work on. That oftentimes I'll try to have them forget about everything else about the lap other than the specific thing that we're working on, and you have to almost tape over the lap time or what have you to ignore it, because I guess one of the important things that I do is recognizing which blocks need to be built on to help a client and their car reduce their overall lap time, improve their overall performance. And by the way, overall performance doesn't necessarily only mean reduced lap time. That can be a lot of things.
Right. Absolutely.
So building on those things, oftentimes if I'm working on with somebody over the course of 2 days, and you've probably seen this going through HPDE and everything up, or a new track, what have you, there's a marked improvement between the end of the first day and the beginning of the second. At the beginning of the second day, you come in, it's like just these things are clicking that just got driven into the subconscious and now freed up mental capacity to take in new information, and it gives you a new base to build upon. So there is a big factor of you kind of have to slow down before you go fast again. And it's important for people to realize that. Now, there's the other type of client that's like very high level driver who's just looking to kind of help critique what they're doing, and it's very data focused, and looking for opportunities to pull out additional tenths, and that's a little bit different. Like that's
Sure.
looking for lap time right now, right? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
work with people like that as well. So depends what you're looking for, and it's important to communicate. Understand what you're looking for and communicate that to a coach if you're working with somebody, and and trust them when if they may guide you towards something that you didn't think that it was what you wanted to work on. But if I recognize like this is the biggest thing you need to work on, I know you wanted to work on this, but this is actually going to help you more.
Right.
Give it a try and give it a chance.
Yeah, I think and at a lower level, being an instructor, I've often seen like two things where it was like, one is the fun one is always like, wow, I never figured how to mess it up in that way. So that's always interesting. And then the other one is, they're worried about, practicing their heel toe trail braking. And I'm sitting there in the right seat going, you have no idea how far you are towards the edge of the track, and you have no idea how close to the limit you are because you don't know how fast you're going. And we've got other things to work on before we get to, these other areas. And sometimes it's scary, but it's usually good. So
my very first student that I ever had, my very first time instructing, his first question was, when can I learn to oversteer? This is his first track day. That was my initiation.
Yeah, that's fantastic. So yeah, the one thing I always say, when it's somebody I don't know is, please don't try to impress me.
Because you can't.
It's not
Please
the
don't try to
goal.
scare me.
No.
I already am.
Yes, we got this covered. So you typically deal with kind of the meat of the HPDE level up through club racer to potentially pro racers. Do you kind of see some common areas that they need to work on at the different levels, and are they the same, or does it seem to change, or is it, it's obviously very individual, but is there some commonality?
Yes and no. So in the yes column, I would put corner entry is just, it's the speed area that I work on with everybody.
Sure.
It's the area where the most opportunity typically lies, where the least amount of understanding typically lies, and the most skill and finesse is really required. So that is typical of every level to work on that. It's also, by the way, the hardest to nail down and find improvement on, and that's where there's a lot of like backtracking before you can step forward. Two steps back, one step forward, I think. I would say that the other difference is goals and understanding of where they're going. So at an HPDE level, there's a lot of eye-opening of, whoa, I didn't realize the car could do that.
Sure.
I didn't realize how much I was leaving on the table. At the club racer level, there's, again, I'd say a lot of focus on optimizing an approach to a track, optimizing the trade-offs of where you prioritize speed. And then there's a lot more car setup, car focus and development on the car at the racer level, right? Than at the HPD. Because if somebody's at HPD level and they're not driving a car, the car that they're going to race, then I really put the car stuff on on the back burner, and we'll provide some comments for after the fact. But what's going to help them on this day or this weekend for their development is really going to be working on themselves. So that's the focus is much more on driver skill or approach and mentality.
Okay.
And then, of course, the racer, there's a lot of racing mentality. And so sometimes that's where you have more of a shift from minimize lap time to maximize opportunity, minimize mistakes, and having a strategy that's going to keep their car intact and give them the best possible finishing position.
Right. So there's hope for us, Vicky. You're on mute.
Of course.
There is hope for us.
Very well.
Mhm.
Well, well, Anthony, we have taken up our allotted time, but we will reserve some future time because we did not get through half or a third of what we could ask. And we're prepared to ask, and we've come up with more questions as we've been typing away with some of your answers. So we apologize for not finishing what we thought we were going to do, but we would hope to bother you again in the future.
Yeah, well,
We'd
it's
love to
just
have
like
you back
racing.
on.
And I'd love to join again. Yeah, just like racing, it never ends. The questions never end. Keep
Nope.
asking questions, and yeah, we didn't even get to the towing stuff.
Nope,
Mhm.
nothing.
That's part of what I do now for OEM work along off
Exactly.
road. So yeah, we got some fun stuff, and we'll do it again.
Okay. Well, one quick one.
Yeah.
You've set records at tracks. You've done very well. Have you had the perfect lap yet?
Yeah, no,
No, I
no,
haven't
can't
found
say.
one yet. So everybody keeps
Uh,
talking about it. I'm like, nope, the endpoint is always moving. So, sir, if people want to contact you or follow along with you or perhaps
Mhm.
work with you, how would they best contact you?
Yeah, social media wise, I mainly use Facebook between my personal account and Drive Faster Now. I am on Instagram, but I don't use it very much as Z3SPDDMN. But email Anthony at
Mhm.
drivefasternow.com would be the easiest. I'm not too hard to get a hold of.
Nope. You're hard to catch though, but you're not hard to get a hold of. I
I'll
even
make a
was
point next time we're at the same track. We're going to make a point to meet up in person.
Yep,
Mhm.
I even saw you like going out to grid, starting to race. I stood there, I watched the race. I saw you drive off the track. It was Mid Ohio,
Yeah.
and then like a ghost in the wind. I was like, "Where'd he go?"
Well,
We'll get
yeah,
you.
yeah, that's part of it. Like, I guess part of where I'm at now is like it does have a business side of it, even if I am racing, and so either you're working on stuff or working with somebody
Yep,
and running around. But yeah, we'll make it happen.
we'll get there.
Mhm.
And I think the way the schedule is working out this week, I mean this year, the odds are you'll bump into Vicky before you bump into me. So that worked out for you.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
All right, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Great chatting with you guys.